I got news today from the hospital about my biggest fear. So, what was I afraid of? The number one killer of men my age is heart disease. Some people drop dead with no advance warning or symptoms. Now, fear does not consume me. I don't walk around in fear every day. I eat right, I work out 5 days a week, and I monitor my blood chemistry every year. But I have always wondered about my heart because I can't see inside my body. I've wondered how much, if any, plaque I have building up inside my arteries. I got news from the hospital today about that, but first I want to explain what sent me to the hospital to find out about my heart and arteries. We were in 𝗏, Vietnam. We met with one of our friends who lives there. He told us about a test he had done that showed he had 60% blockage of plaque buildup in his arteries. So the doctors put him on meds to reduce heart attack or stroke risk. What blew me away was how little it cost him. It was not a blood test. He saw images of his heart and how the blood was moving in it. He was able to see inside his arteries for so little money. The cardiologist and the imaging cost him only $250. This could easily cost him 5 times as much in the US, probably way more, plus he'd have all his expenses if he flew home to do it. So my journey begins when I learned this. So it was his story that sent me on this journey to find out about seeing inside my heart. I didn't want to worry about how much plaque I had in my arteries. I wanted the peace of mind of knowing how advanced my plaque buildup was. That knowledge would give me the power to manage a long, healthy life. After I tell you my results, I wanted to explain why I may be able to take better care of myself outside the US. And I'm not just talking about the cost savings, though that is significant. So I booked an appointment with a cardiologist when we arrived here in Da Nang, Vietnam. Now, I'm 64 years old, and I'm not old enough to have Medicare in the US. First, I'll explain what happened here in Vietnam. Then I'll explain why I would not have flown to the US to do this, even if I was on Medicare. So we're in Da Nang, Vietnam, and I don't speak Vietnamese. So I booked the appointment online, but I didn't know if the cardiologist spoke English or not. So I wrote a series of English questions, and I used Google Translate to get the Vietnamese translation. Here's an example of one of my translations. You just paste it in, and it gives you the Vietnamese. And I wrote a series of questions because I wanted to make it perfectly clear why I was there and what I wanted, so that if the translator didn't get it right, the doctor could read it directly. They have translators in every language at the hospitals here. I don't know about all the hospitals, but the one I went to. Now, so I explained how that my LDL cholesterol is not as low as I would like it, even though I'm a vegetarian, and that I run 5 days a week. For 40 years, I've been doing that. I'm at age 64. I have no chest pain or shortness of breath. I don't take any medications, and I don't smoke. I wanted to know if there's any significant level of plaque in my arteries. That was the purpose of coming to see this cardiologist. So I asked very specifically, after researching online, do you have non-invasive imaging techniques to effectively assess the plaque buildup in my coronary, my carotid arteries, and my aortic arteries, such as CT scans, like a CT calcium scoring, or a carotid ultrasound? And then the next question is, how much would it cost to do the test? And do you have the equipment here on site? And could I have the test done today? And when would the test be available? And he went through the list with the translator, and then they talked a bit in Vietnamese. And then the cardiologist answered each question in Vietnamese, and the translator spoke English with the answers with us. They had all of the modern equipment. The cardiologist recommended 2 tests to determine the level of plaque in my arteries. Test number 1, a coronary calcium scan or CT scan of the heart. It looks for calcium deposits in the heart arteries and that reduce blood flow to the heart. This CT scan shows coronary artery disease before you have any symptoms. Scan number 2 is called the carotid ultrasound, which determines if the carotid arteries are blocked or narrowed. Narrowed arteries increase the risk of stroke, and that's in your neck. With these 2 scans, the cardiologist would be able to see my plaque levels visually and show them to me, which he did, and I have copies of it, and suggest treatments that lower, if necessary, lower my stroke or heart attack risk. The cost of the 2 tests plus the pre and post imaging consultations with the cardiologist and the translator was $174. That's everything out the door. I consented to the 2 tests and were both performed within 2 hours while I was there on the first visit. The doctor was in surgery when the tests were completed, so they set a 9:30 a.m. appointment the next day for me to come in and get results. And they told me that normally if the doctor's not in surgery, he would have given me the scans all in one visit and given me his recommendations. Now, I decided to shop prices in the US just to get an idea of what the savings is. The cardiologist alone would have cost $200 or more in the US. Coronary calcium scan would have cost somewhere between $100 and $400, and the carotid ultrasound would have cost between $150 and $400. So if I was in the US, this would have cost me anywhere from about $450 to $1,000. But the problem is, because of the way medicine is practiced in the US, I would need to see a general practitioner and get a referral to the cardiologist. That could push up the cost another few $100. So maybe, who knows, $600 to $1,500 to get all the way to get through to the cardiologist. But since I have no symptoms, I may not be able to get a referral to a cardiology in the US. Many general practitioners suggest doing blood work and prescribing meds without asking for an image of the present status of your arteries if you have no symptoms. Requiring a referral to a cardiologist is often called a gatekeeper. In some parts of the world like Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, and others, there's no gatekeeper. You just find the doctor you want, book an appointment online, and go see the specialist directly. After I tell you the results from my arteries scans, I'll share 2 very important things. First, why I would not fly to the US for testing even if I was 65 or older and I was on Medicare. Second, I'll explain why I feel I can take better care of myself outside the US. I'll explain that. Okay, next morning I come in for these image results and to hear what the cardiologist has to say. The translator was also there. The cardiologist read the report. He skimmed the report while we're sitting there. Then he turned to the translator and spoke in Vietnamese. The translator smiled and said, "Both scans are clear. You do not have plaque in your arteries." I said, "Wait, you mean my arteries are blocked like less than 10%, less than 5%? The translator spoke in Vietnamese to the cardiologist and he then replied, "No, you have 0 plaque showing up in these scans." Wow. I sat back in my chair and thought, wow, that was such a relief. And he made the scans available to me online. I have a copy of them on my computer, and I can see the results myself. All those years, I'd wondered if my exercise and diet was worth all the trouble. And now I knew. I was treating my body right, and it was returning the favor. Just 24 hours before, I didn't know what my heart looked like on the inside. Was it struggling to keep me alive? You won't believe the peace of mind it's given me to know the plaque is not slowly taking life out of me. Having images of your own beating heart, knowing it's not having to fight 20, 40, or 60% blockage, it's a relief. It feels really good. But there's more to this story. If I had another fear about my body, like cancer or some other ailments that only an image can reveal, They have full body imaging you can do, blood work, EKGs, everything you can get in your home country. Just book an appointment with a specialist from that specialty and your fears are gone within 24 hours. So why live in fear? Just come get rid of your fears for 50 to 90% off in some cases. I got rid of my fears for $174. Next up, I promised to share you why I would not fly home, even if I had Medicare. The flight home alone would cost me $1,500, that's round trip about. Then when I arrived, the doctor would ask if it was an emergency, doctor's office, and it's not an emergency, they would book an appointment maybe 2 to 4 weeks off. So now I've flown back to the US and I'm paying to live in the US for a month waiting to see a gatekeeper. Even if I get to see the specialist, can they order their test or do they need to get insurance approval? Even if I stayed with family and friends, it could cost me $2,000 to $3,000 a month while I wait, plus another 1,500 round-trip flights. So $3,500 to $4,000 before considering the first dollar of medical expenses. Hopefully Medicare would cover most of that. If I have no symptoms, they may just want to do a few tests and then put me on meds. I may not get the peace of mind of knowing how much plaque I have in my arteries. Why go through all of that when I could just book an appointment online and go into the doctor the next day and have results that same day or the next day for $174? That brings up an even broader idea. Can I take better care of myself outside of the US? My experience living overseas for the last 18 years tells me that I can take better care of myself overseas. In 2025, I can get full body images, blood work, access to specialists for less than $1,500 for all that whole package in Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam. And depending on the package, it might only be $700. And the equipment is all top-notch in the various hospitals that I've been in. This allows me to act proactively at the first sign of trouble, or even if there's no trouble, just start with a full scan, find out everything, all the risks, and then each year you can do subsequent scans to see if things are improving or getting worse or what. Now, I can find all this out before I even have symptoms, and I'm in charge of my care in Southeast Asia. I'm not trying to convince my doctor to order an image. I'm not trying to convince my insurance company to pay for an image or a test or a specialist. Being in charge of my health and using access I have to trained specialists for a reasonable price empowers me to learn more about how to solve problems proactively instead of waiting until I have symptoms. If I wait till I have symptoms, in some cases, it could be too late. So when I add the cost of living savings in Southeast Asia, it means I may be able to live a longer, healthier life here with less fear about money because it costs less to live here and I have access to medical care. Now, I'm not recommending what you should do with your life or health care. I'm just sharing what I've learned about my life and my health care after living overseas for the last 18 years. Before you make any permanent changes in your life, you need to do an exploratory visit. See what it would cost you to live here and visit some of the hospitals even and doctors in the countries you're interested in. You may not feel the same about living overseas like I do, so don't make any permanent changes in your life until you have completed your exploratory visit and verified with your feet on the ground whether or not this life is right for you. Make sure to grab my free ebook, How I Fired My Boss and Traveled the World for 18 years. Also, watch the playlist in the upper right-hand corner of your screen right now if you'd like to hear 150 other people share what their life has been like retiring overseas. Thanks for watching.